This recording is for Unit M7, Paper 1, Non-Calculator, for 23rd of November 2023. For question 1, it says the length of the side of a square is 51.1 centimetres. Estimate the area of this square. So we estimate this to be 50 times 50 because the square has the same sides. So to get the area of a square, it's going to be length times width, so 50 times 50, which then becomes 2,500. So the answer to this one is 2,500 centimeters square. For question 2, it's using a ruler, draw a 10 centimeter, so it's basically following instructions. And this A was already positioned there. So what you're doing is you're taking your ruler and you're measuring 10 centimeters and drawing a vertical line. Next one is you get your protractor and you measure 70 degrees. Once you've got 70 degrees there, you can mark a point and draw a line which is 8 centimeters long. And all you do is just connect those two lines up. So it just says join B to C. So basically it's just drawing a triangle from this question. So for question 3, it's a distance time graph. So when we look at question 8, it says how far is Paul from Caden when he first stops? So he leaves Caden here and he first stops at this point here at 40. 40 kilometers is actually the answer for this one. So how long did Paul stay at Exton? So Exton is the flat part on top of this graph here. This is how long he stayed. So he stopped at 120 and then started moving back again and at 160. So that means he stopped for a total of 40 minutes. Paul left Caden at 8:30 a.m. At what time did he leave Exton? So what you're looking at is this bit here. It gets from all the way up to 160. Yeah. So what we're looking at is 2 hours and 40 minutes in total it took him. So like 2 hours and 40 minutes before he actually left back for Caden. So for this one here is you add 2 hours and 40 minutes to 8:30 a.m. which is 11:10 or 10 past 11 in the morning. So for this probability question here, question 4, a fair spin has outcomes 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9, which is reflected on this little circle here. The spinner is spun twice. 2 outcomes are added together to give a score. Complete the table below to show all possible scores. So basically all you're doing is adding those two numbers. So 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 3 is 4, 1 plus 5 is 6, and we continue to do that to fill out this table here. So for question B, it says, what is the probability of getting the most likely score? So if we look at here, 10, 10, 10, 10, and 10 there. That happens more often, so that's the most likely. And you can see that that is 5 numbers, and that's 5 numbers out of the 25 numbers we have together there. So for question 5, a bag contains 140 grams of crisps. 30% is fat. How many grams is this? So first of all, we want to find out what 10% of 140 is. So all we're doing is just dividing by 10, which then becomes 14 grams. And to get 30%, we just times that by 3. And we find that when we times 14 by 3, we get 42 grams. So that is the answer for question 5. So this one says Kevin owns a business. 3/5 of his customers pay by card. 2/7 pay by cash. The rest pay by check. What fraction pay by check? So first of all, we want to find the totals of the paying by card and cash. So when we look here, we have cash plus card is 3/5 plus 2/7. As it's a non-calculator paper, you would have to know how to add your fractions up. So we have to get a common denominator. So when we get common denominators, this affects the numerator or the top part of this fraction. This one, first fraction here is times by 7. So we times top by 7, which is 21. The second fraction we've multiplied by 5. So we have to multiply by 5 on the top of this fraction as well, which we get 10. Then we can add those fractions together. So remember, common denominator 35 stays as it is, and we just add the top. So it's 21 plus 10 is 31. So that's us got the cash and the card payments. So now we have to find out what fraction pay by check. So when we look at the check here, it's 1 takeaway 31 over 35. Now normally you could say like 4 out of 35, that's the answer of it, but this is just a longer way of doing it. Just to show you how this is done. So 35 over 35, take away 31 over 35. So what that is classed as 1. And 35 take away 31 is 4 out of 35. And that would be your answer. That is what's left. So for question 7, it says, look at the table below. It shows the number of pastries sold in the morning. So you've got cinnamon rolls, and it's just got this little table here. So based on this data, how many of the 50 pastries sold in the afternoon? Remember, this is in the morning. So they're asking you, based on this data, how many of the 50 pastries sold in the afternoon would you expect to be chocolate muffins? So sometimes because it's a non-calculator paper, you can actually take the fraction of 8 out of 20 here and simplify it and then just choose which one would be easiest to work with. So because we're working with 50, we can see that 2/5 is probably better to work with that. So it's 50 divided by 5, which is 10. 10 times 2 is 20. So that is basically the answer. They're expecting 20 chocolate muffins to be sold in the afternoon. For question 8, it says, given that 29,400 divided by 245 is equal to 120, write down the answer to, and it's 2,940 divided by 245. Now you can see the top one is missing a 0 there, and what's happened is they've divided the top part of that fraction with 10. Now if you're going to do that, you're going to affect this answer here at 120, and actually you have to divide that by 10, you would get 12 as well. So that's affected this final answer. For 245 times 240, now if we kind of look at this one here, is 29,400 would be equal to 245 times 120. That's just moving these things around so that when you multiply these two together, it should give you this answer up here. But there's an adjustment here. You can see that the second part of this has been multiplied by 2. So 120 times 2 is 240. So what we've done here is, because it's times by 2 there, we have to times this one by 2 to adjust it. So when we multiply the answer by 2, you can see that it becomes 58,800. So for the last part of this one, it says 24.5 times 1.2. Now this is just multiplying with decimals. So if we look up, it was 120 to start with. So if I put a 0 at the end of that one, so that we have all the numbers that we should have there. You can see that there's one number after the decimal point when we're multiplying together, and there's two numbers, the 2 and 0 after it. So in total, we've got three numbers after the decimal point. Now you can take that 29,400 and just go 1, 2, 3. So it ends up becoming 29.4. So that just means there would have been three numbers after the decimal point. And obviously because there's zeros at the end of it, we've just got rid of them and just left with the 4. But it would have been 29.400. Now for this one, the diagram shows two identical shapes A and B. Describe fully the single transformation which takes shape A to shape B. So it's moving shape A to shape B. Now you can use tracing paper for this and just put a pencil down and draw A on your tracing paper and spin it around at 0, 0, and you'll find if you spin it around, it will fit into B. So if you mark it at 0, 0 at this point and put your pencil on and just move the tracing paper, you'll find that A would fit into B. And that would be 180 degrees. So then that's the answer there, is going to be a rotation of 180 degrees about 0, 0. So question 10 is binary. So 110, 110 is a binary number. 20 is a decimal number. Work out the total of the two numbers. Give your answer as a binary number. So the first thing to do is to get this binary number into a normal number or a decimal number. You start with 1 on the right and then just keep times them by 2. 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 2s are 8, 8 2s are 16, 16 times 2 is 32. So we put those numbers above the binary and we can see that there's where the ones are. So these are the values we use. So you can see 32 plus 16 plus 4 plus 2 is 54. Now we've got this in decimal form. We can now add the 20 to that, which is 74. And then we have to change 74 back into binary. So the first thing you would do is just start with 1, and then 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 2s are 8, 8 2 is 16, 16 times 2 is 32, and 32 times 64, 32 times 2 is 64. Now I can't go any further than that because it's 74, you don't want to go over. So then you would put a 1 at the 64 and find out how many is left to get to 74. We can see there's 10 left. So if we look at 8 and 2 would add up to 10, then you would fill in all the zeros after that.